Welcome to Tableau Pulse and Sports. Really appreciate, like I said, everybody taking some time from whatever time zone you're in. Actually, even before we do the agenda, just a couple of housekeeping items. Um, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. I will, like I said, I have some colleagues here who will be helping me out. Should be answering those. We've also got Ian Pearson, who I'll introduce in just a second, who's going to be helping me out with just some of the notes. I'll also take a little bit of time to do some Q&A at the end. So, like I said, quick agenda for today. I don't think we're going to need the full 45 minutes, but appreciate everybody blocking out their calendars for that anyway. We're going to start out with some introductions, myself, and like I just mentioned, Ian. We're going to go over Eigen X, the company that I work for. Tableau Pulse, obviously the big topic of today. Dashboards, Tableau dashboards, and how you know them versus what Tableau Pulse can do. And then at the end, we're going to do a little bit of a demo. So real quick, who are we? I'm actually going to turn it over to Ian first. Ian is pretty new to his role, but not new to Tableau. Ian, you want to do a little intro?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Greg. Pleasure to meet you all. As Greg kind of prefaced there, new to the role in terms of supporting the MLB and the various different ball clubs. So really excited to be here. I've been with Tableau for almost 2 years now. And little fun fact, was actually a Tableau end user during my undergraduate studies at Penn State University. So very big believer in the product. Love to see all the interesting use cases we see, and also a huge sports fan as well. So that's, as you guys can imagine, why I'm really excited to be here, learn more about the use cases across the MLB, and just see how we can help drive that collaboration and creativity. So appreciate it. And Greg, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate the intro. Tableau, Ian is Tableau account rep. So hopefully if you're on this call, he's now your account rep. If I think the one piece he left out is if you were familiar to talking to Alexa in the past, Alexa April, Ian is the new Alexa. So hopefully that's been communicated, but just going to mention that here too. Little intro about, yeah, no problem. Little intro about me. My name is Greg Buckley. I work at a company called Eigen X. I'm a manager there on the analytics team. We'll talk a little bit just briefly about who Eigen X is and the different offerings that we have too. So just brief overview about Eigen X. We're a medium-sized technology consulting company based out of the Philadelphia area. Although we do also have presences in both New York and more recently DC as well. We do work with clients globally across many different industries. We've made up of a few different teams I'll go over in just a second, but we cover many different industries, like I said, with a few of our specialties being in higher ed, manufacturing, technology, healthcare, life sciences, nonprofit, and NGO. And of course, why we're all here today, the wonderful world of sports. And on this slide, the important thing to call out here is that highlighted in the bottom right, Salesforce Summit level partner. We're also a Tableau Premier Services level partner, so we help at implementations for both of those products, both at the highest level. So we've got a really nice staff of excellently trained individuals who can work, with your team to help you in all those fronts. Like I mentioned, primary services. So CRM, of course, refers to Salesforce, that high level partnership. I come to you from our analytics team, which initially started out as a Tableau shop, actually a couple years ago, I think back in 2017, but has since sort of moved backwards in the pipeline, I like to say. So we do everything data pipelines, database architecture and management. And then lastly, we've also got a really solid PPM team for anything related to project management. Okay, now onto the meat and potatoes, what we're all here for. Tableau Pulse. I'll start with the quote on top, communicating insights in an accessible natural language. So Tableau Pulse is all about how to track the change in metrics over time. It's a new tool on the Tableau Cloud platform, launched back in February of this year, so just a couple months old. And it's powered by Tableau AI in a partnership with Azure OpenAI. And I'll talk about what that partnership means a little bit later on, but it's important to recognize that there is a real solid partnership with OpenAI, the names behind, or the company behind ChatGPT and all of their strengths. Like I mentioned, it's basically an add-on to Tableau Cloud. If you have Tableau Cloud, you have the ability to use Tableau Pulse, but it is sort of separate. So I'll show you how that navigation works here in just a little bit. Used for both quick development and quick communication. So a little side by side with dashboards and Pulse in here in just a few minutes. It's available on all Tableau Cloud sites, and the reason I call out Tableau Cloud is because it is not available on Tableau Server. Pulse is available on Cloud exclusively. Importantly, Tableau Pulse leverages data sources in the same way that dashboards do, with security considerations. So if you have data sources already established on your Tableau Cloud site that have either group or individual permissions associated with them, Tableau Pulse will pick that up and only show the people the data that they should see. In addition to both the groups and user-based permissions, you can also use row-level security. So something that I use very frequently with a lot of my projects is within one data source, right? Certain users have certain entitlements to certain rows. Tableau Pulse will also pick up that row-level security. And then how do you actually use it, right? Obviously, you guys haven't seen it yet, but we'll get hands-on in just a second. But where can we use these insights and these generative AI, insights? So you can deliver all those insights directly to Slack, email I get every week, and also Tableau web apps. And in addition, the mobile experience is pretty great too. I'm actually going to show a little demo of what the Tableau mobile app experience looks like. But ultimately, Tableau Pulse is for the business user, right? I myself am a Tableau developer. I've been building dashboards for a few years, and while I sort of consider myself an expert in that field, Tableau Pulse is something that I could turn around very quickly to show business users who aren't as technical some of the information and the numbers that they want to see right away. So jumping on just real quick, what is the difference really between Tableau Pulse versus dashboards as you know them, right? So Pulse only includes that generative AI piece using Tableau AI that we mentioned that uses natural language to provide descriptions of those insights. And it can also suggest certain analyses within your metrics. It'll support and suggest particular dimensions to cut your data by, suggest trends over time. This is really showing a spike, or this is really dropping off. The Pulse Digest in Slack is something that, similar to how a metric, a certain threshold triggered response might come out of a dashboard, right? You'd see a similar Pulse Digest appear in a Slack channel. Something that I really enjoy is the personalized insights ranking. So if you interact frequently with the same insights or the same metrics on the Tableau Pulse site, by giving it a thumbs up or clicking on it and checking out the breakdowns, that will start to appear more at the top of your feed. So not only can you see every single metric that appears in the whole company, or the whole site, excuse me, you can follow the ones that you find most interesting, and then the ones that you actually interact with are going to appear at the top of your feed. Also, interestingly enough, the Pulse platform gets new releases every 2 weeks. Still a very new product. We still want to see really good movement in that product. So there's new releases every couple of weeks. Now, on the flip side, dashboards still have their place. They do update, obviously, less frequently, 3 releases each year for the Tableau desktop and dashboards as you know them. Dashboards can still provide full graph flexibility. So, you'll see it in a few minutes exactly what Pulse is great at and where it's limited to. And the time element is not required, right? So the focus, obviously, of Pulse is tracking those changes in metrics over time. Dashboards, you don't need that time element, right? Break it down a bar chart by a particular dimension. Couple considerations when you're using Tableau Pulse. Like I said, it's only available on Tableau Cloud. If you are currently on server and want to make the move to cloud, let me know. It's a specialty of ours. Additionally, we've got a limitation around what types of data you should really be using to support your Pulse insights. So right now, Tableau Pulse only supports daily granularity data. It wants to see exactly those metrics up until the last few days, but we need to see it day by day. It needs to be up to date, like I said, within the past 48 hours or so is really where it's going to be most significant. If you're completely blank in the last 24, it's not the end of the world. Data sources should be disaggregated to allow filtering. So, obviously, a good handful of you should have been on the development side at one point or another and known that the more you can aggregate your data sources, the better they will perform. But you need to do that to a particular level that still allows Tableau Pulse to be able to draw insights using that generative AI and still allows it to see all the different dimensions that it can cut those data sources by. And finally, Tableau Pulse is not Copilot. So if you were to Google Tableau AI right now, one of the first things that you're going to find is a website that describes what Tableau AI is and where it's used. So Pulse is one platform. Tableau Copilot, which you've heard as a usually Microsoft term, is another one. And just a quick overview of Copilot. Copilot is more for web authoring and supporting web authoring of dashboards. So that's more used by the developers to be able to develop dashboards a little bit quicker, help out with calculations and things of that nature. Pulse is more, okay, the data's prepped, the analysis is prepped, the metrics are in place, and now I want you to be able to track over time, see exactly what's causing those changes, and using AI to leverage, draw insights out of that. Big question on a lot of people's minds when Pulse was announced and AI integrations into Tableau were announced were, okay, where does my data live and how is that going to be impacted by any of these large language models, these LLMs? Right, I mentioned earlier that Tableau and Salesforce have a partnership with OpenAI to make sure that there is no usage of your data anywhere else outside of just your environment. And you can see here that this Einstein One security platform is currently being used across many different industries and many different products within the Salesforce ecosystem. So the same sorts of security that you're going to experience within the Tableau Pulse environment also lives in all these different places as well. To get a little bit more specific, what is the Einstein trust layer? Most importantly is probably on the left side of the screen, the zero data retention policy. So your data as it exists on your Tableau Cloud sites is not being retained by any third-party LLMs. It's not being used to train any of those ChatGPT models, right? That partnership with OpenAI and Azure OpenAI are what enforces that policy. I'm going to jump down to the bottom here for just a second, the data masking. So obviously sensitive data, with any personally identifiable information, you still might not want touching an LLM. It's detected automatically and masked before sending alongside that prompt to the LLM. Supported across multiple different regions and languages. And also, if you're not totally sold, you can actually make manual selections on which fields you can be masked before sending for insights. And then something that's actually been pretty relevant to me, that prompt defense system policies help limit hallucinations. So you may have heard some stories in the news recently about particular instances in which somebody uses ChatGPT for references in their own research. Turns out those references that ChatGPT comes up with don't actually exist, right? That's referring to a hallucination. So Pulse and the LLM don't actually generate any net new content. They just help you interpret what's already there, right? The LLM doesn't perform any calculation. You provide the calculation, the LLM picks up where the changes are and shows you how to break it down with the stuff that you already have. The other 2 points are important, but I'm not going to spend too much time on them. Ian or any of my co-hosts, or any questions in the chat before I move on to some demos you think might be too relevant here? Okay. So I'm going to jump over directly into my Tableau Cloud site. And I'm actually going to start with a dashboard that I built for a few different purposes. So totally fake data, fake team, Eigen Vortex, if you can't get the play on words there, Eigen X. This is an analysis about a fake MLB team with some semi-fake data, but it's all been, sort of jumbled up, a couple years old. One of my favorite ballparks, although I won't reference which one. There's a couple really cool analyses in here, some metrics that you'd see on a pretty standard dashboard. It's got all the interactivity of I'll click on one metric and, the pictures change and the graphs change and everything, and the information at the top changes. I've still got the ability to drill through with the parameters. And in total, after the data was prepped for this dashboard around all the ticket sales, this dashboard, with the mapping and everything, probably took me about 10 to 12 hours to complete. And I mention that because Pulse, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build a metric and an insight. And I just want you to keep that in mind. It took me about 10 to 12 hours to build this whole thing with all the interactivity that I really liked and the formatting and everything. And just realize that it's a lot faster to do something in Pulse. So if you like what you see in terms of dashboards, let me know. But I'm going to jump over to the home screen, right? This is what you're going to see when you open up a Tableau Cloud site. Everybody should be pretty familiar with this. And down on the left side, underneath the Explore button is the Tableau Pulse button. Like I mentioned, if you're on Tableau Cloud, this is available to you. If you do not see the Tableau Pulse button and you are an admin, you can change that in your site settings. If you're not an admin, talk to your admin. I think you can set it up to where only certain people have access to it if you want to test things out. So I'm going to jump over to Tableau Pulse. You can see that the URL is generally the same, although I've now got Pulse in the URL. To be able to jump back to Tableau Cloud, I just hit this little drop-down arrow. And at the top, right, today's Tableau Pulse. The idea is to keep you up to date with what is the data up to today. I want to remind everybody, it's all fake data. I made it all up. So there's no real impact here. But at the start here, monthly ticket sales, it shows me compared to last month, right? Some of these metrics that at the top here, I've interacted actually with these the most because it was what I was using to build this demo. So those are the ones that's going to suggest on top to say, hey, these are your quick hits. These are your numbers. These are what you probably want to see because it's what you interact with the most. And if I give that a thumbs up, it's probably going to tell me a little bit more about that down the road. Now, the first thing I'm going to see is the following page, right? So these are the 6 metrics that I follow personally. There are more on the website. This is everything on our Eigen X portal demo website, right? So you can see that there's a few more on here related to loans, clearly not relevant to me. But in the sports world, I actually have 2 different data sets. One of those is actually the same one that supports the dashboard I just showed you. That's all related to ticket sales. And then the other dashboard is actually related to at-bats and hitting percentage and games. Again, all fake data from a couple of years ago now. But on this screen, I'm able to show you at the same time some of the ticket sales, and also at the top left, right, I've got these 3 true outcome percentages, some pitch velocities, right? I'm able to put all these different metrics all in the same place very, very easily. And I'm actually just going to run through briefly what one of these ticket sales might look like. Or actually, I'll start with the average ticket price. So average ticket price, I click on this metric and I can see the same couple of things that I saw on the last screen, right? It's going to define exactly what the date range is. It's going to show me my comparison from last quarter or last month in this case. So far this month, up until June 5th, even it says June 6th, but my data is as of yesterday. Up until June 5th, my average ticket price sold during the month of June has been $128. Pretty solid. It's a pretty good ticket price, right? As I scroll down the page, I'm going to see this line chart, right? Very quick and easy line graph. But what really saves a lot of time in the development is that generative text piece, that natural language piece that's going to appear automatically right above all of these graphs themselves. So average ticket price within the expected range, so no crazy bumps higher or lower. An upward trend has been detected, right? Trends we'll see a little bit more at the bottom. So pretty standard, right? A little bump from last month, getting a little bit further into the season. That makes sense. The other option to do is look at the breakdown here. So I, as the developer, when I set this up, and I'll show you this in a minute, picked the dimensions that I want to be able to cut these metrics by, right? So the average ticket price by particular section types. So far this month, we've sold some pretty expensive seats right behind home plate, and also obviously in the suites. And then here's the breakdown of some of those other section types. As I scroll down the page a little bit, I'm able to see some other insights. There's the top insights suggested at the bottom. What are the bottom contributors to that average ticket price? So sort of the inverse of what's above here. But it also gives me the ability to search for particular insights myself. Does average ticket price have a trend? Which section type increased the most? Oh, that sounds kind of interesting to me. I'm going to click into that. What's increased the most since last month, right? And that last month piece is defined at the top of this page. I'll show you in a second. The exact time period that you want to reference. Here's the same dimension that I, as the developer, prescribed to be able to cut this metric by. If this is something that I'm really interested in as somebody who does the ticket seat pricing from month to month, I want to know what's selling and what's selling at a higher price. Maybe I'll like this, put that as helpful. That'll, again, appear more likely in the future. Now, back to the time period, right? I've added these few selections at the top where the default is month to date, but you can still change things to quarter to date or year to date or last year. And as a developer, the biggest benefit that I see to this is not having to build all these calculations in a dashboard, right? As somebody who tracks a lot of metrics manually, and this period, current period versus prior period in dashboards pretty often, because the dashboards I build are usually tools to track changes and stuff. These are all automatically generated. I don't have to come in and say, what is the max date in the data? Give me a range 4 weeks before this and 4 weeks before that, right? This is all automatically generated. So by default, I wanted to see this month to date, but quarter to date might also be relevant too. I hit this little check mark, bang, and in just a few seconds, look at that. I've already got my new metrics laid out for me. So this is how you can ingest one of the metrics, right? The next thing I want to show is how can I create a new one, right? And I want to emphasize again how much faster this is than building a dashboard. So what I'm going to use is one of the data sets, like I said, that already exists on my website here, on my Tableau Cloud site. Again, same data set, fake data that I use to support the dashboard. And I want to track the cumulative revenue generated by all the ticket sales. So I'm going to call it cumulative revenue. The metric that I want to pick is ticket price. And I just know off the top of my head, because I built this data set, that ticket price is the individual ticket price times the quantity. So good to go there. Aggregation, I will leave as sum. And running total, you have two options in the Spark lines. It's either running total or non-cumulative. Because I want to see the cumulative revenue, I'm going to leave this as running total. Time dimension, because everything in Tableau Pulse needs a time dimension. I want to run this by purchase date. So I don't really care when the games occur. I still just want to see when all the tickets were purchased. Now, I know that my data set does not have any prior year data, so I'm going to remove that comparison period, but just run this compared to prior period here, which is by default. I've got month to date. Prior period is going to be last month to date, right? Instead of June 1st to 6th, the comparison period is May 1st to May 6th. You can also create an advanced definition. I'll show a quick example of that one in just a second, but ideally we're pretty much almost done here. The only things I would need to do is provide a couple of dimensions that it would be interesting to slice and dice this data by, right? The last metric we looked at was section type. So I'm actually going to add that one back here. I thought section type was pretty interesting, right? Are we looking at suites or are we looking at outfields? Section type is going to be a sliceable filter. And the other thing that I might be interested in is who is the opponent, right? Obviously, you play some opponents in a few game series, but let's see who's driving most of the revenue, right? And because this is a revenue metric, I'm also going to change my number format to currency. And just like that, I'm done. I have created a metric in, I talked everybody through it, so it took me probably twice as long as it normally would. But in 30 seconds to a minute, I created this metric that can now live instantly on my Tableau Pulse website or even on my phone that will quickly show me over time what the changes in these trends are. And automatically, the AI has picked up and written some natural language around each of those metrics. It gives me the ability to see exactly, that breakdown, that top insight. It's already done, right? There was no need to write any more calculations than that. So pretty powerful tool when you're trying to develop something very, very quickly. Now, that was a pretty simple example, right? Just show me the sum of revenue over time. Anybody could do that. Another one that I would want to call out here actually is the 3 true outcome % offense. I wasn't a baseball player. I had one of my colleagues who was help me out with this definition, but ultimately, right, not just ticket sales and back office applications, but if you want to track things that actually apply in the sports world, you can put real sports metrics to this too. 3 true outcome % on offense, right? So what does it look like when my team is batting, right? And I can edit the definition just to show you guys exactly what I did, but this is an example of the advanced definition that I calculated. Similar, you'll see this window pop up, very similar to just web authoring a dashboard. You have the same drop-down capabilities to create a calculated field. And ultimately, this is the calculation that I made, right? I've got if the at-bat or if the event type is the result of the pitch, basically is one of these things, then count the at-bat ID divided by all the at-bat IDs. That's the definition of the 3 true outcome, right? So I was able to write that calculation directly in the Pulse layer. It doesn't even have to live in my data source, although it might be better practice to do that. So just an example of something that you can do that's a little bit more complex. Now, can't compare data when the value's null. Be aware of the data set you're using, right? This is set to quarter to date. Quarter to date, now that we're in the month of June, goes back to April 1st. Baseball didn't start until end of March. So the comparison period isn't quite ready for this. So if I were to adjust this to month to date, right, all of a sudden, my data, I have that comparison period. So that's just a quick overview of how to use Pulse, how to get it set up within the web layer itself. The last thing I'm going to show you guys, to jump back to my PowerPoint here, is exactly what Pulse looks like in the mobile application, Tableau Mobile. I've got a little screen recording here, just easier to stay on the same device. So from my home screen, right, and this is a couple weeks old at this point, but really remains the same, the functionality. This is the home screen of the Tableau web mobile application. At the bottom right here, you can see the Pulse button is what I click on, and instantly I land on the same Pulse screen, just formatted already for the mobile application, right? There was no need for me to have to adjust the layouts like I would if I had a dashboard that needs to fit desktops and phones and tablets, right? It's already formatted for me vertically. Now, clearly the metric I want to look at is ticket sales over time. Not just the sparkline, but I want to see the breakdown by game, no, by opponent, right? I'm able to look into some of these metrics, some of these high levels. And overall, at the very bottom here, I'm interested, what does that trend look like, right? There's a little bit of a downward trend detected recently, but it did come right after a pretty significant upward trend, so maybe we're coming back to normal. But I'm not totally sure about that analysis by myself. So let me give that a thumbs up. And then, like I mentioned, that'll appear closer to the top of my my own feed going forward. So that's Tableau Pulse, right? I showed you guys I showed everybody the web layer, the capabilities, some of the limitations or considerations you need to make, but then also how the mobile layer looks. So I know we ended a few minutes early here. Totally open to stick around for questions, but I want to encourage everybody to follow up with me, add me on LinkedIn, shoot me an email if you have any quick questions. Check out Eigen X. Obviously, we have a lot of great offerings, but also pretty importantly at the bottom there, contact your Tableau rep, who's most likely Ian if you're on this call. But really, any of these topics, if you're interested in Tableau Pulse but don't know where to start, if you want more information about the Einstein Trust Layer and how your data is protected, or if my explanation of Copilot really started to interest you as a new Tableau developer, let me know. Happy to connect. Happy to answer some questions. So I haven't been looking at the chat. Have we gotten any questions in the chat? No?
Looking myself, Greg, don't see any in the chat. Wanted to just thank you. This was extremely helpful. Looking at the actual live demo of seeing how that pulse metric. And one thing that really rings home with me is the ability to also share those metrics out. And part of that is because of the cross functionality between it. Say you're looking at ticket sales prices, and as you mentioned, we saw some downward trends there on that dummy data, but obviously some upward trends as well. And one of the things that I always encourage our customers to think about, because we're seeing new iterations and use cases of Pulse every day, and that fuels our creativity and some of the solutions that we can bring. So, going back to cross functionality, if you see that ticket sales prices are down for a certain week or range or time date, how can we share that information with marketing to know that we're running competitive rates to get more people in the ballpark and things like that? So just wanted to highlight that cross functionality between sharing metrics. Doesn't just have to be for the business analytics team. How can we pull in marketing? How can we pull in sales? Again, to make sure that we're driving fan engagement, creating more revenue streams. So absolutely loved it, Greg. Great job as always.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it. And appreciate the obviously added context and the support here. Really valued partner, even though you're only 5 days into this role now.
I'm just getting there. Yeah. And to speak to the larger group as well, I guess, as obviously Greg mentioned my contact information here, looking to make my rounds. I appreciate your patience as I continue to get acquainted with all the different use cases at the different ballparks. So definitely will be making some introductions on behalf of, your new Tableau team here, and hopefully pick up the smooth and tight partnership that Alexa established in the past.